everyone, and welcome to the LCS Proving Ground Summer 2021. My name is LaTigers, and I am joined by Smacks to bring you the final day of our first week of action. Smacks, how you doing? How ready for today are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm so ready for all the action that we're rounding out round one with. These matchups are super hype. We've got some history behind them. We've got some rematches going on all throughout the year, and it's all culminating here today. I'm super pumped.
Yeah, that's the greatest thing about Proving Grounds. It's all the narratives we have been following, not just through spring, but through summer, getting to this very moment. I gotta say, I am super stoked to be here with you. I know you've been covering this scene for quite some time, and it's so great to have an expert here. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the schedule today. Because Max, you already started talking about how fiery our matchups are, because Evil Geniuses Academy and Golden Guardians Academy will be facing off later. This is taking a look at what we have seen thus far throughout the week. And I think it's fair to say, Smacks, when thinking about teams like TLA, as well as the others that we see moving on into round two, they've definitely kicked things off with a splash.
Yeah, this week has been astounding so far. Team Liquid Academy, the winners of the Academy playoffs, took a swift 2-0 against Supernova, already rewriting history from spring where they took an untimely exit early on. We already have some pretty cool teams advancing on to round two in the upper bracket. Cloud9 Amateur, one that I'm sure Academy fans in specific have their eyes on as a newcomer with a lot of really cool upcoming talent like Wixie and previous 100 Academy player Breezy rounding out that bottom lane. So we've got some pretty cool matchups that we've already gotten the chance to look at. And on the other side of the bracket, that is where we reside today. EGA and GGA, as you said, are our first matchup, and then later on, Cloud9 Academy versus Resolve.
And this will determine who will be facing off against 100 Thieves Academy as well as Wildcard Red. Looking at those two teams that are awaiting the potential out of the four that we will witness on the Rift here today, Smacks, does it align with your expectations how those series ended up going yesterday?
I would say so. I was pretty excited about 100 Thieves Academy because they do have the roster change. Of course, they've got Gamsu and Chad coming up from the 100 Thieves next roster, and they did not disappoint. They did take that first loss against TSM Academy, another tough team to take down, but the bot side of 100 Thieves Academy still remains intact, and I was particularly impressed with Chad Jungle in that series. He had a great one, and I was really happy to see the mantle that Kenvi left behind on his trek to Europe for Worlds was not left tattered and broken.
For sure. And the great thing about our format here today, it is double elimination. So even those teams, after having some great performances from individuals and across the board, will have a chance to make that lower bracket run. But let's dig a bit deeper into who is taking to the Rift here today. Evil Geniuses Academy versus Golden Guardians Academy will be our first matchup. Last time we saw EGA, they were facing off in quite a scrappy best of 5 against Cloud9 Academy in the summer playoffs for the Academy scene. So Smacks, tell me a little bit about what they bring to the table.
Ooh, these teams have quite a bit in common, Tigress. For Evil Geniuses' side, they have been a huge development roster all throughout the entire year. In spring, they actually ended up in 10th place in the regular season, just playing those 9 games. Did not look amazing, but their trek from that to the end of Spring Proving Grounds was astonishing. They ended up placing top 4 in the 16-team tournament that was in spring. So from the literal bottom all the way to top 4 was a crazy journey. And one of the teams that they actually got to play against was Golden Guardians Academy. That was in the Giant Slayer tournament for Wisdom back in spring. This was the finals of that tournament, and Golden Guardians ended up reverse sweeping them in the finals, which was amazing too. I talked about how Evil Geniuses was 10th in the spring's regular season. Golden Guardians was 9th, and they also had a crazy comeback journey all throughout that split. And now both of these teams are going to have to try to get that back off the ground, but unfortunately they're playing against each other in the first round, so one of them is going to have to do it from the lower bracket.
The similarities between the stories of these two teams makes it hit that much harder. The fact that they are facing off here in the first round, having so much to prove after the improvement from the regular season to playoffs in spring. And as you said, continuing on that trajectory, rather, right here in summertime. So if we are going to take these team by team, going a bit more on EGA, I know there is a lot of hype around the jungler, Tomio, really stepping into contract shoes and filling them quite adequately.
Omio has been a longstanding member of Evil Geniuses in 2021. Previous jungler for Evil Geniuses, Prodigy is another team that Proving Grounds fans might remember from last split. Recently promoted, taking in the role of contracts and rounding out this strong force of rookie presence on Evil Geniuses Academy. They now have 4 people competing for the first time in Academy this year. Tony Top, Tomio, Jojo Pyun, and Team Luke, and then rounding that out in Mystiques. I guess he's also competing in Academy for the first time as he's coming over from Europe, so all 5 of them.
Yeah, some multi-region experience, but in the end, still overall a very young roster, which I think adds that extra level of intrigue when you are comparing them to Golden Guardians, who also have a lot of young players, multiple coming from Scouting Grounds 2020 that took place last summer on both of these sides. If we're talking about, you have Tony Top on one side, you have Tomio as well holding up that Scouting Grounds mantle. And then for Golden Guardians Academy, there are multiple as well between Niles, Yoonbi, and Rosethorn, all looking to show out here today.
Yeah, Niles and Rosethorn even on the same team from Scouting Grounds 2020, so they've been playing together for quite some time. Of course, Niles, coming down from the LCS roster, has been looking quite strong in the Academy circuit, and he's still bringing some carry top performances up there. His Camille, his Gangplank, some of his story champions that I know collegiate fans will certainly remember from his time on Maryville. Bringing that to the Golden Guardians Academy squad has been slightly tumultuous, I would say, because previously they had played as their main carry in Prismal pretty much every single game. They were playing through him on wacky picks like AP Twitch and Kog'Maw in the craziest cases, but other champions like that. I think for Golden Guardians Academy, they've definitely had a tough time adapting to having multiple carries on this roster, but when it works, it works. These guys are still very strong.
You mentioned Prismal and what he's been able to bring from that carry position, and there's a lot of consistency that comes out of someone like him, who was actually, I believe, on that 100 Thieves Academy roster a couple years ago that won it all in the championship in Academy, which just shows you that level that he brings to the table for maybe some stability there. But overall, Smacks, it feels like Golden Guardians have really changed their strategy, even if we're looking at their recent performance in UGP from the earlier stages where they got knocked down into the lower bracket with maybe not as much knowing what their game plan was, but really seeing a plan come together series by series as they went on in the competition.
Yeah, I think in the middle of the Academy split, they were really trying to go for a supportive mid laner for Yoonbi, things like the Karma and the Twisted Fate, and then Rosethorn would go for the early ganking junglers like Volibear, Xin Zhao, the like there. And when it came to their match against Resolve, who we'll end up seeing later, that strategy did not work. They kind of got trounced by the mid-jungle duo of APA and Fnatic. So they had to adapt on the fly. They were like, wow, this was not the game plan to prepare. We got to try something else. Started putting Yoonbi on carry threats in like mages like Ryze and Azir. It looked so much better. It looked so different as well. They ended up getting revenge later on in the bracket, and that's the kind of form that they are now coming into the Proving Grounds tournament with. They had Yoonbi play some really strong performances from mid lane, and with that, adding on to the carry threat that is Niles and Prismal, this is a pretty high-level threat team where really anyone can carry.
How would you compare then, looking at Golden Guardians Academy, the fact that they have multiple players that have carried within multiple games, different strategies they've executed, compared to Evil Geniuses Academy, while they have a lot of prowess across the board? Even Ryoma in his post-game interview yesterday noted that EGA tends to play through mid, through Jojo Pyun right there in the mid lane. So where do you think things will be facing off between these two teams?
I think the thing to keep in mind for Golden Guardians is, yes, they have all these players that can certainly carry, but it's about consistency for them. They aren't really as consistent as some of their peers, which is why they are seeded quite a bit lower than a lot of the Academy teams, and I think that's something that they will need to strive for in today's series and in the rest of the tournament as well. They'll need to really just pick someone in any given game, whether that's Niles, Unb, Prismal, even Rosethorn, and just go all out through that one person. Whatever they say goes. Let's play through that guy.
That can be kind of the thorn in a lot of sides, not just of GGA, pun not intended in this case, but not necessarily knowing exactly when they have the lead in a specific lane with a player and knowing how to carry out. And as we go through the draft right now for game number 1, we can see a lot of the typical targets here. Smacks, I feel like Thresh has barely gotten any play because so many of the supports, not just in this game, but beyond, having such a strong performance on there. But Lee Sin also taken off the table this time around.
Yeah, I really like this Gangplank ban against Golden Guardians because it does take away that opportunity for Niles to play a damage threat, but also a more supportive, island-style champion. He can just play up in top lane against Tony Top, fire the cannon barrage whenever needed, and be a late-game threat. So removing that, and this Rise now does, tear away at what Niles and Yunbi can potentially do at their peak form. So this does potentially mean that Prism will end up being the carry in this game, but we're going to have to find out as Evil Geniuses did just lock in the tried and true LeBlanc for Jojo Pion.
Yeah, if there's somebody that knows how to snowball with LeBlanc and just become an absolute threat as the game goes on, it is Jojo Pion, who's known for multiple styles, quite honestly. Even when playing something like a Lulu, still going to be just as aggressive, which makes it really exciting when he's on a pick that really leans into that capability that he brings.
Yeah, Lulu, funny enough, is his highest win rate champion, over 10 games. So, pretty funny stuff for Jojo Pion, who everyone would think of as this high-octane, carry performer. He does play those style of champions, but not in this game. He will play the assassin on LeBlanc. Swiftly countered, though, by this Lissandra for Yunbi, which is not a pick that we end up seeing very often for Golden Guardians, but is one that's very well tailored to counteract what LeBlanc wants to do. Whenever she goes in with her distortion, just instant root. So great lock in there and rounded out with this Rakan too.
Yeah, and technically buffed on patch 11.17 as well for the Lissandra. So when you see her picked more in this counter opportunity, not necessarily because she offers a lot on her own, it feels good as a player to know she has a bit more of that agency with things like her Q being maximized. But on the opposite side, looks like Trundle's coming to the table, could technically flex into multiple positions, but something that Tomio has known to pilot as well.
Yeah, I like this Trundle. Like you said, it is a flex pick, and it denies some of the champions that Rosethorn really likes to take, like the Volibear and the Xin Zhao that I mentioned before. Those champions don't really appreciate having to deal with the Ice Pillar or the Subjugate, so it's up to Rosethorn to figure out some creative solution to this if it is going into that jungle position, as Golden Guardians are going to lock in the Captain America pick in the Jace for Niles. I like this answer to Camille quite a bit. It does have a really easy time playing aggressive in the early lane. It does suffer in the side lane as the game goes on, though, if you do let Camille get on top of you.
But in the end, it gets Niles on a pick with which he is extremely comfortable, especially with the GP being banned out against him so frequently. It feels like as a result, we have seen more of the Jace. And yeah, you mentioned on the other side, we have Camille getting locked in. Tony Top loves his dueling, loves being able to split push. So getting him something nice and early so that he feels mighty comfortable in that regard. But Ziggs continues to be a priority across multiple teams and now banned away by GGA.
Team Luke is the self-proclaimed best Ziggs in the world. I don't know if that's a verifiable fact, whether or not he is, but he likes to think that he is, so removing that is a lot of respect given over there. We're seeing a lot of marksmen will be banned away. The Xayah, paired up with Rakan, of course, the Lovers duo, very potent. But for Golden Guardians, I'm really curious to see if they do lock in their marksman right away, or if they save counterpick for Rosethorn, because as you said, Trundle could potentially be flexed down to the bottom lane. It could still be jungle, so maybe Rosethorn has more in the tank there.
And because of that, Golden Guardians Academy not knowing exactly where that Trundle is going to be, their last ban that they've brought through is the Xin Zhao. So they don't want Tomio to be able to take over in that way. Just a lot of great target isolation. So good on EGA to really kind of conceal their cards at this point of time and open up more opportunities for them in the rest of the draft as they finish up the remainder of the ban phase here today. And it's Viego. Every jungler nowadays is loving them some Viego, especially once he gets to that first item power spike.
Honestly, pretty surprising that it wasn't picked earlier on. Of course, it was nerfed on this patch, specifically in that jungle, but really fun champion to see pretty frequently. This is already showing us some creativity, though, from Rosethorn. That is a Kindred lock-in, potentially counter-pickable for Tomio. Wow.
Yeah, Kindred locked in has been played a few times just during the summertime by Rosethorn, so he has experience here and is looking to execute. Somebody that you really want to make sure that you can accompany her to get those marks. You have someone like the Rakan that can really help there too, to put her in a position to carry later on in the game. And EGA looking to lock in the Tristana, a pick that cannot be forgotten because of her power and paired nicely with the Leona, who did also get a little bit of a nerf on this patch, but still very viable.
G Academy are going full aggressive with this last set of champions. They're going full dive. Leona can't leave once she gets that Zenith Blade in unless you want to flash out. But if I'm Leona, I'm trying to keep going. I'm trying to keep engaging forward. Pretty bold strategy against the champions like the Kindred and the Lissandra, who can just easily mitigate that once you do dive in. But Evil Geniuses Academy are not a team to back down from a fight. They haven't been all year, so I like that they are fully committing to this, and it does give them a lot of agency in this bottom lane too. Even really whatever pick Prismo decided to lock in, it is going to be the Aphelios, of course, but you still, no matter what champion you're locking in, you have to be careful of the Zenith Blade and Rocket Jump.
The way that Mystiques likes to play, being the ultimate agency for the rest of his team, obviously playing the engaged supports as most of the supports are defaulted to, but you can tell in his style that he is willing to be there at the forefront of the strategy that EGA bring through and maybe punish Aphelios, who can struggle with a little bit less sustain in the laning phase compared to some of the opposing bot laners. As we are wrapping up, we know exactly what this draft is. Max, who are you leaning towards? What is your overall take here?
I really like the aggression that Evil Geniuses Academy have, and I think the cool thing here is that Golden Guardians Academy have a very physical damage focused composition. They've got really only Lissandra for magic damage, so these like plated steel caps are all of a sudden just skyrocketing in value, where you can mitigate the damage of Kindred, Aphelios, and Jace, all those auto attacks. And for Tomio to just subjugate that too, he might just become unkillable if UNB doesn't deal burst amount of damage. So I'm feeling like Evil Geniuses Academy have a pretty nice time shrugging off the damage in the late game, even though they are more early focused, I would say.
And that's definitely what they're going to be trying their best to do here on EGA. I mean, on the side of GGA, they do have some of the defensive tools. A nice thing that we mentioned before about someone like Lissandra, not only having the E to be able to lock in someone like LeBlanc, but that Frozen Tomb using in an aggressive, try to pick somebody out and catch them manner, or just to kind of delay and create your distance until you're ready for that moment, as well as the Lamb's Respite you have for Rosethorn here. So we might find ourselves in some very severe denial situations if played properly by GGA, where EGA, we've seen them in the past, they can be very proactive and they can go for those plays, but you always have to worry about what it does to their team synergy if one of those goes wildly wrong right here off the top. So as we get into game number one, Smacks, I'm looking to see what they can do with that proactivity on the side of Evil Geniuses Academy to really disrupt Golden Guardians Academy here today.
Oh yeah, it feels like a lot of that aggression will need to be sent into this jungle counterpick for Rosethorn, as he is showing us a lot of creativity already in the first game. Kindred is not a champion that we're seeing very frequently. When you think of Kindred, you're mostly thinking of Kenvi, and that's kind of about it. But Kenvi's not even in this tournament anymore. So the fact that we are seeing this champion is really cool. As a response to the Trundle too, you can shrug off the slow of the Ice Pillar, because you have all those jumps with your Q. You can jump out of range of that. But if you don't get the marks, then you do end up getting outranged by champions like the Tristana and even LeBlanc too. Having to use your ultimate very early on in a team fight is not what Rosethorn is looking to do.
And that's something that if you're looking at Tomio on the Trundle and thinking about what he could potentially do to deny some of those opportunities for Rosethorn, because we saw even in the LCS some games where you don't get to that fourth mark, you don't get the range, and you are regarded as utterly useless in the matchup as time goes on, especially if EGA can snowball in the way that they want to. But as we get into the game, taking a look at how things are going across the map, with Tony Top and Niles, they are both known to play very forward into their lane, not afraid to poke, and that's something you can expect from here in this matchup for sure.
This is certainly a matchup that both of them have played time and time again. Tony Top, starting with a tactical sweep, shows it because he doesn't really want to take auto attack trades with this ranged champion in the Jays. He's perfectly content with just getting as many minions as he possibly can and staying in EXP range. It's going to be a while before Tony Top can safely aggress upon the Jace. And something that will help out is Tomio clearing up to the top side. You can see he's gone for a full bot side clear, angling up there. Rosethorn's doing the same, though, so we might end up seeing both junglers just aligning and intersecting around this top lane.
And one thing, speaking of Tomio, that I haven't actually gotten confirmation on if he's joined the location of the rest of the team. When we saw EGA facing off against Cloud9 Academy just a few weeks ago, he was still separate, playing on 80 ping, but still doing everything that he could for his team. I know that they had plans to move him a bit closer, so that's just an interesting factoid about what this homie's trying to do for his team in the end.
Oh, yeah.
Right here around mid lane 2 smacks, that's where a lot of us said that we were just going to be able to keep our eyes because of the focus of both these teams around this lane.
Oh, and we can actually see Rosethorn did lose the coin flip on the early Scuttle Crab mark. He did take the wrong one. It will be the bot side Scuttle that has the mark. So Tomio just running directly over there. Jojo taking a swift recall so he can walk over it with his teleport. And Rosethorn just sort of his tail between his legs. Man, missed out on the mark.
Yeah, sad feelings there. You can control who you mark as a champion, but then when it comes to that spawning of that camp, a little bit unluck right there. And as you noted, Tomio and the rest of the squad immediately following through. Here in the top lane, though, great poke coming from Niles, but you still have that sustain and some biscuits in the pocket of Tony Top to keep himself here a bit longer. CS in the favor of Niles currently off of that poke.
Nice use of the golf swing to cancel out the hook shot, and we'll get a couple more auto attacks on the back end of that trade. I like this word from Tony Top, just scouting out the brush, as the minions are pushing into him, so if Rosethorn is to make a lane gank happen, that is the way that he would do it, but they've scouted this out on Golden Guardians Academy's side. Rosethorn now knows he has more things to do on the bot side of the map, and that convergence that we mentioned in top lane hasn't really happened quite yet. See if Tomio can actually sneak his way in.
Both of the top laners had warded out here, so Niles moments before forces out the stun. Tony Hawk on the opposite side, forcing Niles directly towards the turret, but Tomio, he's here with the hits. That's going to be another smash. The pushback from Niles, the flash from Tomio as a result, and that is first blood going to the Troll King.
The ward's not deep enough into the river there for Niles. He was not as safe as he thought he was. Tomio with the ice pillar, or the pillar of filth, really, as he's playing that traditional skin, is enough to take him out. And Niles, he knows that he can't get out. He doesn't even try to flash out. There's so much utility with that champion, and he does get taken out immediately.
The response from that top side play, though, is the action down here bot. You can see Rosethorn has made his way to the party, but Jojo Pion is here too. There's another flash out. Jojo gets caught out, flash forward, and the rocket jump in Zenith Blade to close the distance onto the enemy Rakan, but he's got the battle dance. Unfortunately, the stun landing directly onto Prismal. Another shot will do it. The explosion is good, and Team Luke getting a kill in his pocket. EGA, the kill lead for sure.
And Tomio's Pitbull out here, Mr. Worldwide, showing up bot lane also. Another assist for him on the Trundle. He can go right back to clearing, and things are really collapsing for Golden Guardians at this point. They have to flash out of a dive that they were trying to make. Jojo Pion, an excellent roam down, and there just isn't enough time for Yunbi to collapse either. We didn't end up getting to see what happened mid, because there's just been so much action, but fact of the matter is, Jojo is here, Yunbi's not, and EGA have outnumbered the opposition.
The response time from both sides was great. Rosethorn immediately opting to make that play on the bot side, but EGA between Jojo Pion as well as Tomio making that faster rotation, and the numbers were just in their favor, expelling quite a few summoners in the process, but on the other side as well, Prismal having to use both of his So great leads for EGA across, but the gold lead is still, it's about 700 right now because of that farming that we noted earlier. For instance, Niles, while he did die, keeps it even with that CS currently. And yeah, we'll have to see how they end up bringing some of this pressure to elsewhere on the map.
Brismal, despite dying there, has a pretty big lead for himself too, so Golden Guardians are not completely out of it. They still have some carry threats on this squad, but as I mentioned before in the draft, Golden Guardians, they have these carry champions, they have these carry players that like to play aggressive, like to be the main character, you could say, but it's up to Golden Guardians to actually decide which one of them will be the protagonist of this arc, and which player they want to commit everything to, because you can't give everything to both Jace and Ophelio. So see that they're thinking about making their way up top lane, but Thorin might not like this idea now that Tomio's here.
Rosethorn collapsed between a pillar and a grump with Yunbi here for the party, and the Lamb's Respite only lasting so long. That's another kill in favor of EGA. Ultimatum thrown down as well for Tony Top. Niles all in his lonesome between Tony Top and Jojo Pion at this point, but still a decent amount of sustain for himself. Can he get the trade before he falls? A little bit of electric action, one more hit, and the narrow slice of life that Tony keeps on himself is enough. EGA came to play.
Oh, Niles was so close to finding another kill, but Evil Geniuses are just so far ahead. They're so clean with the rotations again, Latyrus. Jojo, he was late this time, but as the LeBlanc still shows up, still deals all of this damage, and is now 302. Let's see what he actually buys. Oh, all right, he's got some books. He's starting a library.
Very red scholar over here, educating himself ahead of the next time, but this is just an unfortunate situation for Rosethorn.
You can see Yunbi is here first, but Jojo has so much mobility to arrive, and I believe Tomio is still in the Lamb's Respite, even though it didn't quite look that way. Stalls out for just barely long enough again. I like that Niles is still going for this. You know, he's completely in no man's land at this point. There's no way he gets out. He still has the Lissandra passive dealing some amounts of damage, but Tony's just... He drinks his potion or something, man. He's got the last Tryndamere ultimate.
There's just so many ways to both gap close as well as create the distance when needed between the hook shot from Tomio. You've got Jojo Pion with the way that he can cross as well. So just getting out of reach in a place where Niles isn't necessarily at that point in the game where the burst is going to be heavy enough to get the finish off that he needs. But can probably keep a cool head for himself as he moves on later on and gets his build a bit more online and can better contest some of these matchups. But he knew exactly what he was walking into, Smacks, and that there was no hope except to maybe try and take someone down with him. Rosethorn, though, now securing a bit more vision over on this top side by executing the scuttle, and both junglers are still around here towards top.
And notably, Rosethorn does actually have 3 marks. Despite all of the early action going the way of Evil Geniuses, he has picked up 2 camps, and that last assist onto Tomio gave him a 3rd one. So only 1 more between him and an extra 75 range. It's not a bad position to be in at 10 minutes. You see that he was able to take out that Rift Herald too. So one lucky member of Golden Guardians Academy will be granted a couple of plates in their lane. Rosethorn will get to decide where that actually drops, as we're still waiting on the first Drake of the game to actually come down. 10 minutes in, that hasn't been a priority of either of these teams. There's too many kills to be had.
And both of the bot laners kind of been left on their own since we last checked in with them. Team Luke has closed in on that CS lead quite a tad, and because of those engagements earlier, obviously had that kill and assist as well. The wave currently being pushed up, it's a chance for some of these wards to get dropped down on both the sides. You can see this starting to check around here and kind of call for the action so they can set up for a Drake potentially in the future.
Geniuses Academy, they still have a bunch of pressure in this bottom side of the map, or more specifically, wherever Jojo decides to go, as he is super strong in this LeBlanc. He already upgraded his boots just to get around the map as fast as possible and blow people up with the extra magic penetration. Going back to base, wherever he decides to lay his claim will likely be where another kill actually happens for Evil Geniuses Academy. I really love the way that they are just completely dedicating to the movement for Jojo and Tomio. Wherever they go, that dictates the pace, and Golden Guardians have to adapt.
Lots of squishy targets on GGA for Jojo Pion to try and target, and we've already seen him doing exactly what you want to see with that movement across the map. Niles once again focusing some fire onto Tony Top. You can see just how heavy those blasts are starting to hit, which means Tony Top instead going to go ahead and get it back here. Does have teleport available. In fact, teleport is available across the board for all of the players that brought it through. And Tomio is already here towards the top site. Here's that TP, but the Rift Herald is being dropped down as well. Rosethorn finally finding the target for it, so that's some good late. Oh, nice hit right there. Meanwhile, here in the bot side, though, Team Luke into the crosshairs of Prismal flashes over the wall and will find himself in safety.
Oh, that was such a tragedy for Golden Guardians Academy in the top lane, not getting the connect on the turret platings with the Rift Herald. Swift Smite from Tomio just barely saves the day there, and Golden Guardians Academy still have a slight deficit. I don't think they were going to be able to take out the entire turret, but it's surely not the case now. Niles has to put in a lot more work up there by himself, and we're seeing that Golden Guardians Academy are trying to make plays in both bot and top still. They're still going for the pick out onto Team Luke. Didn't have to use both summoner spells, but no full commit from either side means the Golden Guardians still come up empty-handed on both.
Yeah, and with that, there hasn't been a lot of necessarily completed action, right? Because these plays have been a bit split. Herald dropped over in the top side, but didn't get much out of it. The narrow escape. So you see the summoners and the resources being blown on EGA, and it makes you wonder how Golden Guardians Academy will respond. In this case, it's by going over towards that Drake with some of that distance that they push Team Luke away. So that's going to be the first bot side objective secured on the board for GGA.
I think this is actually a really cool time for Evil Geniuses Academy, is they do have such a gigantic lead, and they can feel that they have this lead, you know, coursing through them. This team definitely knows when they are stronger in a fight, or when they want to go for a fight just instinctively. But I like that they are playing the past few minutes just very reserved, knowing that they can go for plays like this and it'll work.
Yep, Tomio and Misty's right here on the top side. The Solar Flare gets the catch onto Niles, but there's teleport coming in right behind Newbie and Rosethorn, throwing out the wolf for some extra damage of the bite. There won't be a follow-up here. A lot of that started Tony Top feeling mighty powerful coming back to lane with the Divine Sunderer, but there were some friends to the party to help Niles stay in this.
This continued reservation is awesome from Evil Geniuses. We've seen many games of them where if they see that fight, they see Niles that low, they're going for it. These guys are not players that want to just leave a blinking health bar standing. If they've got the abilities, if they can flash in, they're going to do it. But they're playing this much more disciplined and much safer, knowing that they can just reserve that lead that they have before. They are stronger, and they can use that later on into the game and take higher percentage fights. I really like this look from them that they're bringing into their first match of Proving Grounds.
And because of the fact that when looking back at some of their recent series, it shows that level of growth, overstepping a little bit too much in times that have sometimes cost them a game. Now, in this case, are continuing to keep their lead strong. Though we will see a pivot point later on, Golden Guardians are going to try and find opportunities to open it up for themselves, whether it be through the Drake stacking and maybe just committing towards a lane and seeing what they can get in that regard. So, Smax, if you're on the side of GGA, how are you feeling about the fact that you're able to offset some of these proactive plays attempting to be made by EGA, even if it is just slightly?
It is not a bad position that Golden Guardians are in. They just hit 4 marks on Rosethorn. He has that extra range. The main problem right now in this moment is that the entire enemy team has their mythic items complete, and nobody on Golden Guardians does. So you have to still play very defensively, and Newbie has to ult defensively too as he makes his great escape.
Luckily does escape indeed, but can't affect the mid lane now. So it's just Niles against the 3 members from EGA, but now Rosethorn circling back. There's also Newbie coming from the side, but there's no wave actually pushing in the mid lane for EGA in that moment, so no threat to dive. And meanwhile, all the way on the bot lane, Prismal finally cracking that turret open, but a trade across the map as Tomio secures the next Rift Herald.
See where the lane assignments actually are for Golden Guardians, because as you said, Prismal just taking out that turret means he probably doesn't want to be in the side lane anymore in this game, but they are still seeming to make the decision to send Yunbi mid lane. You can see Prismal's not too happy about that. He's going straight mid as well. He's like, get out of my lane! This is mine now! I'm going mid! I don't want to die! I want to stay underneath this turret. So, that's likely what's going to happen. Yeah.
I have a mortal shield, but now I can keep myself nice and topped off if need be. I'm here for the fights if you want me to be, but let me be in this nice safe area, please. Definitely the thought process there. But as a response, because so many of GGA are here around the mid lane, that's exactly where EGA are hovering as well. To see where they can try and put some of these wards aggressively ahead of some of these next objectives. Still a full minute and 25 seconds until that next Drake spawns. So it's from the jungle that Shelly will be dropped down towards that bot side turret. Niles pushing here at top. We're starting to really see the evening out of these turrets.
Golden Guardians Academy not sending anyone bot lane does mean that likely will be a second turret crashing. Unless they can clear out this wave, but this Rift Herald is still alive, and they've got a lot of siege damage with Trundle and Camille. Nice engaged threat, might have saved it. It's still very low, though.
Nonetheless, you're always happy with the second charge. Team Luke, rocket jump out after expelling the ultimate to push Prismal away. Niles narrowly misses with his shot. Newbie's here to put his body in between the two, but Jojo Pion's got a lot of burst damage. Can he get the lockdown? Tomio's right in front behind him, but Niles jumping over from the opposite way. Rosethorn gets the kill onto Tomio. The pursuit will end there for Golden Guardians Academy. Take the win of taking out the enemy jungler.
Hitting very hard onto the extra mobile champion of Rakan, not ending up being a favorable play for Evil Geniuses Academy. So many abilities used, just dodged out wonderfully by Newbie. Walks away with a blinking health bar, but in reality, Tigris, he still had that stopwatch the entire time. So Evil Geniuses Academy weren't ever really going to find that kill, and a nice response from Prismal, getting all that damage in, gives over a kill to his jungler, and Golden Guardians Academy, again, they're certainly not out of this game. This is not the perfect position to be in, but they're feeling a nice amount of relief as they do lock in their second turn.
And really leaning into some of the strengths of that composition. You made note of how Newbie was able to navigate there, and a lot of the great recon players that we have seen lately always having something like the battle dance available to zip over towards an ally. As long as they're properly positioned, you can sometimes bait out some of the utility and the aggression from your opponents to set up the rest of the team for some good follow-up. But right now, it's Rosethorn and Niles that are going to join the rest of their team in the jungle, because you can see the core position from EGA. There goes the glacial ground, another stun onto the enemy of Kindred, and Rosethorn plucked right from the bushes at this point, so the rest of the team is forced to scatter.
Rosethorn just jumping over that wall. Not the wisest move, as it turns out. There are a bunch of members in the enemy jungle, or in your jungle rather, where you get another engaged threat.
Oh, the root and the knockup. Mystiques is taken out of it. Didn't necessarily catch anyone out with the solar flare, and GGA opened up that as an opportunity to knock on his door instead.
No, this is an opportunity that Golden Guardians are taking advantage of, where, like I said in the draft, plated steel caps are really valuable, but Unity has all this crowd control that all of a sudden you don't have Mercury Treads, you don't have tenacity for. Mystiques just gets blown up the second he gets stunned once, so very nicely done for Golden Guardians to find another pick for themselves. They are coming closer and closer to finding gold parity in this game. They're still behind, but with their mythic items picked up recently and all this crowd control, they can still find picks this way.
With the way that Evil Geniuses Academy had drafted, it was expected for them to have some of that early game aggression and really try to follow through with that, and we saw that for quite some time. But now we are just passing over that 20-minute mark. That gold lead hasn't really been extended. The Dragons are starting to stack in the favor of GGA, and even single picks that have been grabbed by one side are usually answered by another, in that previous case of a jungler then later traded for the support. So Evil Geniuses have to be careful that Golden Guardians are just going to find an opening to just try and really take over this map through this pure objective control and convert it into a win.
Potential is really big when you talk about Lissandra and Rakan, and they can engage from a very long distance away, multiple screens even for Rakan if you've got your flash up. Luckily for Evil Geniuses, they don't have to worry about that right now, but will be coming up in about a minute's time. They have to keep this mid lane defended most of all. This is the most important thing, I would say, for Golden Guardians, because they've already had their side lanes cracked open. If they lose out on mid, then the jungle just no longer is accessible for them. And for Rosethorn, who is this resource-hungry jungler in the Kindred, you don't spike on one or two items like something like a Trundle would. You still scale further and further into the game. You want to have as many items as possible, so losing out on your jungle is a really big detriment to a champion like this.
Ooh, look at what Niles can do at that point, though. Chunking down Team Luke to half of his HP, so he has to retreat behind this turret, and that turret itself falling so quickly to GGA, who have all of their party here to play. And that's just enough to be able to get all of the damage that they can output in burst. They don't necessarily have to get the kills to be able to follow up on the objective.
Man, Team Luke's health bar is taken all the way down to 300 just from 2 shock blasts. It's very scary, and Niles doesn't even have the mana immune completed into the Mura mana quite yet. It's potentially just going to be 2 hits and you're dead as soon as that comes through. So Team Luke going to have to be more careful than that, as he did not go for the defensive option of the shield, though. Wants to deal as much damage as possible. Tigris, we're still talking about how Evil Geniuses, they had this early lead. They did play it very disciplined. They played it knowing that they have the scaling advantage, and they can hold out reservations and hold out hope for late game, but it's dwindling pretty quickly at this point.
It's kind of that flip-flop moment where if you have the scale and you can see it kind of going very much in one direction on EGA for the first part of the game, and now it's not sure which way it wants to tip just yet, because both teams still have an opportunity to keep cracking into this with their level of control. EGA getting ready to scale up, but GGA is bringing themselves into this quite effectively, even just based off of what we've seen by players like Niles, who really made up for some of their earlier deficits. But right now, it's just the complete teams around this mid lane. GGA recognizing that it is their only offensive lane at the time, and EGA just want to try and maintain the control of the side lanes they've had through the center of the map. Get these wards on Baron as well. Maybe try and bait a fight around this one.
Seems like they are doing exactly that, or potentially just burning it all the way through. They don't have a lot of damage onto this, and they are warded out so far. Golden Guardian's already putting a stop to this.
They know the entirety of the team is here, and Jojo Pyun can't do enough. Gets immediately locked down by Golden Guardians. And the EGA, with the knowledge that they had, were hoping to find one way to flip it, but it flips against them now.
Absolutely did, and now Golden Guardians to start up on the Baron. They have to worry about the engaged threat of Leona and Camille. They're going to have to worry about this right now, as it turns out. Tomio in position.
Pillar thrown between them. Solar Flare hits onto one of the carries on Jace, who's stuck onto the actual objective. Tony Top right here on the outskirts goes into stasis. Yunbi is, but Yunbi, he's still in it, alive enough to have an impact. Tony Top and Tomio collapsing upon Tsunumi, who goes into his own stasis. The collapse is reversed into the other order. A double kill for Prismal. TP over on the back line, but the TP isn't going to be fast enough from Jojo Pyun, as Golden Guardians Academy secure the Baron and win the fight.
Flipped on a dime this game. Golden Guardians completely wiped the fight. That's a delayed ace, as Jojo had just spawned after being taken out. A 5-0. So that's a full Baron that can go claim their prize of the Infernal Dragon. And Evil Geniuses Academy, we talked about it for a while. Their huge advantage is not there anymore. As soon as you go for this Baron, you don't have sustain, you don't have damage. You can't actually go for this and expect to be able to turn in a meaningful way, as shown by Jojo, who ends up getting killed even after trying to flash out. Disaster situation for Evil Geniuses, and they're reaping the reward of that one. Reward for the punishment, rather, as they are now down 4K and a lot of scaling advantages in the objectives.
Yep, that scale has officially flipped with the 4K gold lead for GGA. That was Evil Geniuses that were tired of the song and dance they were doing around mid lane, that wanted to make something happen by calling for that Baron and trying to set up for GGA's eventual advancement. But it was completely turned around once Jojo Pyun was taken out of it, Smacks.
And this is why Lissandra is such a hard counter into LeBlanc in this stage of the game. If you go in for a distortion, you have to worry about where Lissandra actually is, but they don't have vision at all. Everfrost into the ultimate, into all this damage from Prismal. Even after the flash is used, it's still a shutdown with that delayed auto attack from Rosethorn. Another mark picked up, by the way, is Rosethorn really making the second marksman work.
He really is, and the team as a whole just getting so much off of what we're seeing in this moment. You could see the picture-in-picture for a second that showed they're getting the turrets off of this buff that get Ooh, a lot of pushing over towards one of the inhibitors, though. But this was just a lot of nasty funneling of GGA into that pit, Smacks.
Yeah, it really was. And we saw the Lamb's Respite made sure that all these members of Golden Guardians were able to stay alive. Newbie even being a diversion to Team Luke. Just crowd controlled, knocked up, charmed, can't survive at all. I believe there was a teleport from Tony Top that we just saw, not canceled out as he makes his escape to the base. Well done for Tony. So he did take out the inhibitor turret, as he mentioned.
Yeah, he did. He was pushing over there in that bot lane, and eventually GGA were able to answer. But you can see on the mini-map right now, it's Golden Guardians that are pressuring both in the bot lane and the mid lane with Baron-empowered minions. Jojo Peon is up towards that top side to usher that wave in, but there's a lot being lost on the map currently, as EGA's hopes are just to try and stabilize and minimize the losses as much as possible here.
Evil Geniuses, they know they can't go for a team fight at all. The ultimates are already going to be back up and available for Golden Guardians. They just have to watch and see what gets done to their base. Turns out that is just a full bot lane inhibitor completely destroyed before their eyes. Get that wave pushed up top, but no structures to be found. Jojo has to go back to base under threat that potentially Nexus turrets will fall, and that's the last thing that Evil Geniuses Academy want to happen. Have to worry now about the super minions crawling into their base and that Drake timer for the soul potential for Golden Guardians.
Yep, a lot has been cracked open on this map for Golden Guardians, that's for sure. And even though there was a valiant effort by EG, as we had noted, Tony Top trying to make that push towards the bot, but didn't actually get the inhibitor, so it's still a definitive advantage for GGA. As you notice, those supers are beginning to spawn currently, and they've got some of these wards positioned pretty heavy on down, but those aren't really necessarily relevant ones right now. It's EGA that really need to try and set up some place for them to be able to traverse this map, but mostly in a defensive way because they're so on the back foot.
One thing they could possibly do is burst out Prismal, but the planning is already there in preparation for that possibility. As Prismal does have a stopwatch, he still has cleanse, but you have to find some way to do it still, I feel, if you're Evil Geniuses and you want to make a play around this next dragon, because if you do give over that dragon, that's just way too much damage to have to deal with. If you're a LeBlanc and you're getting chunked out before you can dive in with your distortion, then it is lights out. You have to go to game 2. So for Evil Geniuses, they do have to make something happen, even despite all of the preventative measures.
And we are at that point where the next fight could be the deadly last, with Golden Guardians Academy being on this soul point when the next Drake does eventually spawn. That is very deadly territory for EGA because they've just not been able to keep any control over on that bot side. And yeah, Smacks, if they can pop out someone like Prismal, that's great, but there are those multiple threats. Niles having the chance to really just execute some damage onto people like Team Luke and try and effectively get Tristana out of the fight early enough.
Yeah, huge chunk landed onto Newbie, who does have everything at his disposal to go for an engage. The screens away grab from Rakan is possible now, so the Drake is going to be up. Recall from Jojo. He has the teleports who can actually access this fight, but so far Evil Geniuses have already laid their claim in the river. Teleport now secures it. They want to go for this fight. They have to go for this fight.
Let's split right down the middle of this river right now. Ooh. Newbie using the battle dance to get back to the rest of the team, and a flash boost. Jojo taking out. Look at that stun in the back line. The answer is back. But Evil Geniuses, Tomio gets the kill onto Lysandra, and Rosethorn popping the Lamb's Respite keeps everybody alive in the time being. That's a nice level of healing coming through as well. The burst is so strong onto the enemy mid laner. Niall smashing is on down. There's the ultimate from Tristana to try to get out, but locked in on the opposite side of the wall. No escape. Mystique's on the retreat. And Golden Guardians Academy, despite losing to a clean ace from them, right around this objective, soul secured, GGA feeling mighty good.
Well done for Golden Guardians Academy. I think they might be able to walk it in and end this first game, La Tigris. Another stellar fight around the neutral objectives. 4 straight Drakes in a row. A convincing mid to late game for Golden Guardians Academy. Really locks this one in, and they are now at match point.
Tower number 2 goes down. The hits on the Nexus are active. activated. One more kill for the team for a little bit of morale. While the minions do the rest of the work, they don't quite clean it up onto Tony Top until that very last moment, but it is still a great feeling from GGA as they secure game number 1 here, Smacks, against Evil Geniuses Academy.
Man, a comeback like that to start off a series has got to feel great. It's not even one of those comebacks that goes into like 50 minutes, so it's not one where you're just like in like this crazy mental battle. It's just some early plays didn't go quite well. They kept their heads on straight, they played the neutral objectives better, and they played their own game out. Simple as that. Very well done for Golden Guardians. Not a whole lot that they have to do other than maybe not give up too much in that early game, but even still, if they're going to play the mid game like that and they're going to play around these objectives very well, then yeah, great stuff. This might even be a 2-0.
Yeah, if they can continue that into game number 2, I mean, EGA, yes, they got those early advantages. They were able to get some really effective picks, but once we got to that mid game, oh, no Drakes have been picked up by anything. GGA, we're okay with taking those. We're okay with waiting for a little bit before we truly hit our spikes, and it worked out very well for Golden Guardians Academy to set the tone in the series. We're going to kick it to a break, but when we return, we'll go right into game number 2 after talking about it with Smacks right here. Everybody stay tuned. We'll see you soon.